basically, um, well, if nobody's listening, I can't see if, it'd be great if see if people are in here because otherwise I'm just kind of talking to myself. It's kind of lame. But if you're listening to me anyway, if you're someone who can see me, let me turn this on so you can see the window capture. Let's turn off the job hunt itself. Let's start talking about this. Okay, about the actual interview process, right? But most of the time, most of the time, it's kind of assumed when you're doing an interview that people are interview trained, right? And it might sound weird that there is interview training at all. And so, because there's not, you can always be sure about that. Oop, gotcha. We'll say, because let's say she's the only one that's got trained, right? The official training is from a place. So I'll just practice this in case nobody's listening. There is a interviewing institute. It's a targeted selection training, and there are entire guides for it. Right, so you'll have people who are targeted selection trained. Sorry, a little bit of lag on everything here, right? So that is actually like a day and a half. Is it a 1.5 days of in person training? It's pretty substantial. I mean, it sounds goofy, but it's just the reason they do this training is because it's the whole purpose that you run the way you run your business, right? So like you can't just play around with it. Although I'm sure a lot of people would say that like uh, it's not a big deal or something like that, right? And they'd say like yeah, it's hiring, it's not a big thing, but it really is a pretty big thing. Of course, because these people will be in your company, right? Running it one day maybe. So if you have the ability to zoom in there, you can see we've got the 1.5 days of training. Blow it up real big again because I'm getting my butt kicked here. Got 1.5 days in-person training. And it's rigorous, and then you actually go through questions. You do the it's like got bullets, right? It's like parts to it. So it's like there's like a um, documentation. There's guides. And there's the actual interview packets, and design. So we talk about the packets that come with an interview. Basically, you get those packets from the TSI group. So like if you said, hey, I've got a supervisor job, it's and you let them know you need that help, right? And then they'll help you figure that out. But basically you need that the guide with them. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't want to make it that big. We're good. We're good, bro. Yeah, so eventually you need that those interview packets and their guides. So it makes it very easy, right? So you already usually if you're like hiring like what I did when I interviewed for supervisor positions, each one of those positions is just um like pre-packeted already. So they already know what kind of packet it is, and it's very specific to um that area. Now it's not specific to the group. And I'll get into the reason why that later because it's let's say you have a packet for like a manufacturing supervisor, then you have a packet for a distribution super, like a warehouse supervisor. Then you have one for a warehouse manager. The problem is though they do kind of cross over quite a bit. Some of the questions are exactly the same on either one, depending on what you depending on exactly how it's been predetermined. So anyway, so basically it's so hey, we got this job opening. you get your packet for that job, and that packet's going to have those set questions for that job specifically. So that's it. So it's like the 12 questions plus the fluffy bonus questions at the end, right? Um, and then it's got a scoring sheet. It tells you how to score. So basically, everything you learn in the class and all the guides you get kind of converge into this packet, right? So this is the packet. And some people, like I have access to a packet still. Probably shouldn't, but I do. And it's just part of like a business is not keeping track of stuff. But you got to be shitting me. Yep. Anyway, yeah. What we got here is like, okay, so they'll have a packet. And then you'll go through. So you'll do some example questions, like with the whole team. So with the whole class, okay. And basically, you're gonna ask these questions with the entire class, and then you have to stand. And you have to stand. You have to stand up and give your answers like in high school or something. See, each team stands up and gives response responses. Whoops, checked against the whole. So basically, it's you stand up, they ask you a question. Okay, my example, we chose the question of give an example of a time that you did a good thing for your team, and then you would give your answer like a real answer that you gave your team. And so at random within that team, you're gonna say, "Hey, somebody stand up and give us your question and answer," and you get roasted by and I do it till everybody goes. That's why it's a day and a half. You keep on getting better and better at it, right? And they make you get better and better at it. I mean, I guess if you're the first guy that goes, you just learn by watching after that. But the initial people, they they're gonna, or the people later, they're gonna keep learning. And so by the time you get to the last round of these questions, these people are very, very, very good at what they do. You'll learn. You're like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to interview. You know, one of the things that I think is always kind of screwed up about doing these interviews. Anyway, let's finish the class though. But let's say, okay, so you check it against for your understanding, and then you get into like the philosophical part of it, right? So there's a philosophy behind interviewing, um, where you're kind of supposed to take the enterprise mindset. So this is where the question becomes like, are they trained, right, to do the actual interview? Because anybody could follow a packet, is right. Anybody. The whole part up here, this part here, the only one that really matters is getting the packet. Okay, and from there, you being the interviewer um, isn't that difficult, right? You read the packet and it says, "Hey, John, there's questions about this and do this." Okay, now and then this, by the way, though, this is the highest level of interviewing um, process that a company can have, right? So sometimes a company won't have this process at all. So I'm giving you the best. This is the best of the, the best example of a process on how companies that are really big do interviews. But then the problem is that they don't have to, regardless, they don't have to follow these rules, right? But somebody in their company is a really good person and they really do want people to learn how to do really good interviews, pick the best people, kind of think outside the box, even though we built this box, right? They want you to like put people in that box, get your answers, and then spread the box out, right? They want you to say, hey, and that's why the last questions of the interview is always um, name a position you liked a lot and why, right? Like, or what's your biggest strength and weaknesses? What's the job you hated the most? And they'll say, and the idea of those is to get the feel for how you are. So they just listen to you BS off your way through an interview, right? Obviously you're going to be, if you had a project where you saved $1,000, well, suddenly it became you saved $1 million, right? But we all know those things are going to go up in human boasting. It's that natural. You want to be picked. You interviewed for the job. You posted for the job. You want it, right? We all know that. So when we're listening to you say this stuff, really, we get the ideas from your examples of how you work, And then it's a motivation. Why do you work that way? So if we say, hey, do you like this job? Why? Do you hate this job? Why? It's a really good time for you to let loose. I mean, you still got to answer the question and answer it very well. And I think you do need to practice for interviews, by the way. But if you just get those questions like, hey, name a job you don't like and why, and then to really just kind of really say, okay, well, one time I had this job and I really didn't like it. And they'll say, why was that? And that's where you could lose the interview completely based on how you answer that question. Because if you're like, well, I didn't like that job because I worked with a bunch of Mexicans or something, like done, you're out. They're not going to even. You are the biggest risk to their company they've ever heard. Because even if you're the best candidate possible, they don't want that lawsuit. 5 months down the road when you let something else like that slip. Okay, it's not worth the risk. So we could talk about that strategy later too, is just shut up sometimes. Some people just they keep talking. And that is a big thing. One guy I knew, he couldn't get a job. I was in like three of his like 8 interviews he ever had, and he just couldn't stop talking. So it is a big deal. And if you're in the chat and stuff and you can't hear me, or you can hear me, or just let me know what's going on. Um, so yeah, then we have like let's see here. Okay, so we'll say then the philosophy kicks in. I should have wrote that instead. It philosophy kicks in. Okay, so if we kind of move this guy, put it kind of off screen. Okay, let me really get it. Oh, bring it back. Okay, so now you've got this. Let me grab this. If you want some lessons on how to be real fast at PowerPoint, I got those too. Or I can give some tips. Okay, so let's do the philosophy of the training. Philosophy examples. Okay, so then we're going to go left, justify, we say one, don't. Okay, come come to the interview with no baggage. No, I don't know if that's how they say it. It's been a long time since I did the training. But basically what it is like you're not supposed to really let the candidate know. So the candidate's time is their time, okay? It's supposed to be um, treat their time like it's special because it is, right? It's their chance to like for this person, and I've seen it before because I've tried to help people get jobs, and I'll hook them up to these interviews that they really it's like way out of their league, but there's a chance, right? And these would be life changing opportunities. And and so it's like, hey, yeah, I think this person can do this job. Like, right, like I've got the confidence in you, but you have to ace this interview, or well, not ace, come on, but you got to do a really good job at this interview, and you've got to practice, and you've got to be ready for this. But the problem is that these guys, these girl here, are they interview trained? Are they, are they interview trained to get past the daily BS that they have to deal with, right? Because you don't know, she could have just been demoted or something, and she's like, "What's going on?" And then this guy, he might have got the raise that she wanted, so they might be sitting by each other because they have to do this interview together, and they're pure enemies. Anyway, I can go on forever, but you get what I'm saying. These people, they just have like they have their motives, you have your motives. Things are going on. But when you're in the interview, it just stops. The only motive really is to hire somebody and get the interview done. And even if they're having like a bad day, that's why they write on the interview because they take your answers down. That way it can be read by someone else later. And the scoring's done later as well. So it's supposed to give people like a break to go do the scoring thing. So maybe they have time to think about your answers throughout the day, right? Kind of digest things. But anyway, going with no baggage. So this is a killer for interviews. Okay, if you've ever usually see somebody do um, give feedback on an interview, right? You say, hey man, how was your interview? And they'll go, "Oh, there's just that one guy in there that just really just was busting my balls, man. And that's what happened to me in one of my last few interviews before the job I currently have. Man, this guy was busting me. I was so bad. Like, I mean, and I couldn't get him to smile. Everybody else, I got him to laugh. This guy, no, just dead stare, right? And pissing me off. And so in the interview, I know, I know because I'm trained to do this. I know that it was screwing me up. Okay, like I was having conscience, the thoughts of it. So as I'm doing the interview, I'm staring at this guy's picture, right? Because it's virtual, right? It's Teams or whatever, or Zoom. I can't remember what they were using, but it's like four of them. There are four in the meeting, not just three. And I kept looking at this guy's picture after that. It's like looking at him like this dude, like I can't, I'm gonna crack it. But then see, that's the problem is that I think I still got that interview really well. 'Cause I actually turned them down for a follow up because I had gotten something else. Um, but I mean, like, think if you weren't trained like me, right? If you didn't have the skills to interview that I have, right? The knowledge, how things work, how would you navigate that? You know, how would you, how would you do it? Um, it's insane. So, so yeah, it's a problem. Uh, anyway, that baggage is it's a huge deal, man. Um, so they say they come in with no baggage, right? And then they also have to um, don't judge, and I'll just say it this way: don't judge a book by its cover. Where's my mouse? Right. Okay, so don't judge a book by its cover. Basically, they're not supposed to judge you at all. Okay, so I've got a story for this. Back when my very first shot of getting off the warehouse floor at a giant corporation, a big corporation, I'll say, whatever. Um, I worked my butt off to get real smart and everything, and then like my boss was on vacation, so we had a boss standing in, and and I came into work on a Friday, and my Fridays were T-shirt Fridays, okay, because I was already trying to be a management kind of guy, so I was wearing like polos every day, because that's what management does when it's more casual, right? I didn't wear button-ups because I still had to do physical labor. I was gonna get dirty. I'm like, do a polo. I can go to Goodwill and get a polo for $1 or whatever, right? So anyway, but so I was wearing polos every day, looking presentable, like more presentable than normal, right? I'd tuck them in sometimes, my belt and everything. And some people actually thought I was a supervisor a lot of times. So there are tips in life that like dress the part you want, right? People say that. But anyway, um, I didn't know I had an interview on my T-shirt Friday. I just came in with I remember like I came in late from lunch break and like I it was like a shirt that was like Justice League or its mightiest heroes, but I'm like, oh my god. I walked up and my boss is like, hey, my stand-in boss is like, hey, uh I screwed up. There's an interview in there, right in that room right over there. He's like, they're waiting for you. They didn't know, I didn't get the email, but they want to do the interview right now. And I was like, oh my god. So this is like before I've had all this training and stuff, um, and how to do interviews. And I've only interviewed a couple times, right, to get the job I had, and then a couple jobs before that. So it's like, way out of practice. And I got destroyed. And but when I walked in that room, again, it's like I don't know what kind of baggage they might have had, but for sure they judged me on wearing a superhero shirt. Okay. And already in life, not that I let a lot of things get to me and be a downer about it, but when I walk into an interview, already there's all the social pressures that you have on you, and then to add on to it, that's why it's like, hey, they make these rules for a reason where it's like don't judge them because I mean, I interviewed a guy that had like a mustard stain on his shirt, like a big, like, I mean, a giant mustard stain. I think somebody knocked like a bra on him during one of our like fair days or something, and that afternoon we had an interview with him. And I was like, hey, and after the interview, of course, we giggled during the interview. We tried to make him feel good about it. We're like, well, you obviously just want to walk right out, like we're making all these jokes about it. But I'm like, no, hey, we're gonna give you a fair shot. It's just mustard. All right, it's just mustard. That might be a saying or something put on a shirt. Um, but yeah, I was like, hey, it's just mustard. But then after we left the interview, we're like, ooh, that's rough, right? Being honest, like, yikes, walk into an interview with people that aren't cool like us and have mustard on your shirt. That suck. That would suck. So anyway, then we got past it, right? And then the guy got the job because he did a good job anyway. But it's like, but also the mustard was like the icebreaker. I think it's just everybody else was all nervous Nellies and sitting there and um, giving bad answers and stuff, and this guy is just laid back. He's lounging like I am now, just sitting back enjoying himself. He's just having fun. Um, anyway, so that's one of the things they're taught not to do. Okay, don't bring your baggage. Don't bring your baggage in to the interview. Okay, give people a fair shot, and also don't judge a book by its cover. Okay, so there's two things I got going on there, and then there's another one. Oh yeah, you ask the same questions. Ooh, where I've seen people not do that. Now, as you as the interviewee, you're not going to really know if they've asked the same questions or not, right? Unless you know the other person. But I do know they can get in a lot of trouble for this because the whole goal, besides being fair in targeted selection interview training or any interview training there is like you don't want to have any risk to the company, right? So just like I said, I wouldn't hire the guy that's like, oh, my worst job is because I worked with Mexican or whatever, or replace it with black people or whatever you want to say, whatever. All those things that you like wouldn't hire him for is the same as this, right? You don't want to hire somebody when there's going to be like a red flag, right? But you ask the exact same questions. You know, um, you don't judge them at all. You don't have because you just don't want any reason at all. Okay, like any reason. So that's why they do not like very big companies do not let you interview unless you're trained. Now, sometimes they'll just train everybody, right? And then it's like, well, now or they're force them to do training. So then you'll end up with a guy, the most disgruntled guy in the whole company is interview trained. And then they'll be like, hey, all of our calendars are full because we're go getters. You're the sucky POS. It looks like you're doing interviews this week, bud. So now you've got horrible interactions going on. And as a process improvement guy, yeah, I think it gets out of control. And I've seen it, and it's fine. I know people that have been hired at jobs, and I just shake my head. How'd this guy get through the interview process? Like this is one of the worst hiring decisions we ever made. And I'll look at who interviewed and I'm like, oh, yeah, the laziest people at the company. Great. Um, and then so it's like, all right, hey, we'll give this person a shake though. I don't say it to their face. This is all internal, right? I'm thinking, okay, they got to have a chance to shine. I'll even go introduce myself. I'll ask them if they need anything. I check up on them, even when we were peers. And I was doing interviews for people at all levels, but if they were my peers, even I would be like, hey, do you need something? Is something going on? Um, and then uh, and then a lot of times it never worked out in the end. Like they might survive for a while, but yeah, in the end, I'm like, oh, see, I knew it. We just didn't do this. The rigorous training that we were taught, um, it will expose like red flags. This training. But, anyway, so you ask the same questions when you get this packet. All right, it's got 12 sections. I mean, well, it matters, but let's just say for the places I've interviewed with, it's like maybe 6 sections, 10 questions, like categories, and then 3 questions per category. So it's got like 6 sections, 10 questions, not counting the weakest thing at the end, right? Like what's your weakness, what's your strength stuff. 10 questions, 3 or 10. Ooh, categories. Categories, 3 questions per category. All right, so they have to choose one of those 3 questions, right? So they can do. The problem is though they have to keep it, right? So if it's a question, so to go deeper into it, if it's if they ask question 1B, and then they ask 2C, and they ask 3A, they have to keep that cadence in the whole entire rest of the interview. And like I said, just to be fair, and I don't know how you would know if they did or didn't. That's a different argument for a different day. But sometimes they do get caught doing that, and it's a big no-no. It could, like I said, it could just lead to bad things going on. I do know people who would leave the interview room, and one guy even came right up to me after he did an interview, and like he came out of the room and he met with me after that. I'm like, oh hey, what's up, man? How'd the interview go? He's like, oh, I didn't get it. It's because I'm black, and it's because I'm old and it's because I'm like you go to HR for every one of those things, right? Like I mean, and I was like, are you gonna build your case off your interview like questions or whatever? And I was really like, asking like, what are you gonna say though? Like you got to prove that it's because of those things, but I don't know what happened in there. And they like, well, the questions were unfair. I'm like, oh, I don't know, guy. I don't know about that, but anyway, you could be right or wrong. I'm just saying, but yeah, the whole point is just we're trying to protect the company. We do these interviews, um, and you ask the same questions, and you don't judge, and you go in smiles and high five at everybody, right? No matter what happened in your day. Okay. I think that might be it for the philosophies of it. I think um, it does include a few more tricky things, I would say. So, like, let's say candidate answers too scripted. Okay, so this is where people will say that you should like practice and memorize your answers. Yeah, I agree. You should practice and you should have an answer for every question kind of preloaded in your frontal cortex there. Get it ready. I know it's not the right, but anyway, you should have it ready. You should have it ready. Problem is, if if you answer very fast and your answer is too robotic, too scripted, then they say, then ask another one. And this is where they can break the rule of the question they're supposed to ask, right? So let's say the first one they say is for the first question up there, it's 1B. So they say, okay, I asked you 1B. And then you rattle off some answer real fast. You don't even think about it, right? Because they're going to give a second to think, right? They're like, yeah, go ahead and think about it. Give me an answer. And you're like, back when if you don't pause on, you go, oh yeah, that one time, blah 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 blah, and you rattle it off. And they kind of look like, ugh. They're like, great response. Give it to me again. But the trick, which I had one guy do, and he threw me off, at the candidate answer. Sorry, this keyboard, I don't like it. It's a laptop. Is to is very good. Then ask for another example. So ouch. So these are both the same. That's the other one, or another example. They're both the same. They're both have that same thing, right? So if your answer is very good, they can say, "Wow, man, that's crazy good." Yeah. Do you have another example of the time you did that? And you're like, "Oh God!" And usually you'll be so confused by that. You'll be like, "Can you ask me the question again?" And I'll say, "Yeah." I'll say, "Yeah." The blah blah. And they'll say, and then you have to give just a different answer. But I think at that point though, it's okay because I've asked for follow up like one time. Well, not a follow up, but like the exact like, wow, that was great, man. We had a good conversation about the question. Like, took a long time, and I was like, do you have like other examples of like where it's the same thing and maybe you didn't do, but we're supposed to do that. That's what we're supposed to do. So I know this all seems robotic, and I ask a question, you ask a question, or I give me an answer, I write it down, we move to the next one. No, great interviews with great companies, with great training, with great people. They actually want to know how you are, right? They're not just trying to fill a seat. They're trying to fill a permanent person um, into the company. So they're going to ask extra questions. And so, like the company I work for right now, um, they asked a lot of follow ups. Like it was like, oh yeah, I did this, and they're like, oh, how much data were you pulling for those reports? And I'm like, oh well, I was using, there were master data uh, analysts, and they would give me the data. But I did learn from them how to pull the data eventually, and was doing it all on my own. And then I had some process improvement things going on where I actually made the process better on how to pull the data. Anyway, but like you roll it in. I'll tell you what. It'll throw you for Disney though if they do it though anyway. But I think you have the right. I think you have the right. If they say, "Hey, is there an extra one?" You say, "I'm not sure," and you're like, "No." At this moment, you're like, I just for some reason I can't think of one, but I know I've got one. And then they say, "Okay, we'll just move on." And then, but there's emotions to that, I'm sure, because I would feel kind of weird. But there are times where people don't have an answer for a question, and we're allowed to ask a different one. So again, And, there's like caveats, but let's say I asked you 3A, right? And you're like, you struggle. I can see you're struggling. I go, hey, I can ask a different question. That's okay. That's in the same category, right? Whatever. So I'll just pick two or 3B instead, right? And then I'll ask you that one. Now, if you if you get through three questions and you can't answer 'em, I think the interview should just be over. Maybe I don't know because you should you gotta be. I mean, you've been alive long enough to get to this interview. You've probably got some pretty good examples. And there's a lot of philosophies on that too, on what kind of answers you should give. Should they be personal? Should they be work related? But anyway, let's stick to this for now. Anyway, yeah. So the answer is too scripted. They can ask you to answer the same question again, or um, or go to the next question. So 3B again, and then this one, same thing. They'll just ask you for an example. Yeah, so I've seen that happen too. Trying to think of all the other things. Yeah, so follow-ups will happen. We did talk about that. So follow-ups will happen. Okay. So, I don't think anybody should be really surprised about that. Like I said, if they really, really want you, um, then that's what they're gonna try to do. Is oh shoot, lost my mouse was stuck by my coffee and I couldn't get over it. Let's do I don't really get rid of this. Yeah, let's do it like this. Let's shove this guy over here too. Who cares? All right. It's gonna take a while. Sorry, it's like lagging. All right. Okay. Everything's done lagging on that. Yeah, we're gonna be good. All right. Yeah. So follow-ups will happen, and they should want to follow up with you because they should have questions for you. Okay. Should be. You know. Oh, add on to that. I'm not sure what that system is. What do those acronyms stand for? The things that they would ask you in your normal life, right? Like if you met me at like Buffalo Wild Wings, like that's how the interview should feel. Like you're out to dinner with these people. All right, you should come with that like a feeling in your body, right? Just like, hey, look. And some people know if you're going from $10 an hour to like 25, and then you're going from like 20, or you're going like $25 to like $50 an hour. Like people make these jumps in their careers, because the pay is that crazy right now because there's like no middle class, and we could blah. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but that's a little bit of my opinion sneaking out there. But you can go get jobs with crazy incomes, right? But you're going to be really nervous. But normally, what you should think of is like, hey, if I don't get this job, nothing changes, right? I mean, like you got to come in with that mindset, right? But anyway, they should be asking follow-up questions as if you're at lunch, right? So it's just like a lunch meeting. Hey, how you doing? And introduce your own. You can learn their names. If they say how your day's going, ask them how their day's going, and that's why you get there early too, as well. Because some of these people, if they're really high up managers, they don't have time to dilly dally, right? Like if they're not a strategy leader that has like gaps in their like like times their schedule every day, then this guy, like if it's a manager of a warehouse, he's gonna come into that interview, he's gotta go right back out. Okay, so you have to make like a lot more lasting impression. So get there early. Um, be willing for him to come in the interviewers to come in late, be okay with that, let it ride, right? Because you never know what the outcome's going to be. But anyway, yeah, follow up question should happen. Should happen. Tell a guy at lunch, you're like, yeah, man, the ACES system went down. He's like, oh wow, what's that? What's the ACES system? They're going to ask questions like that, and you should expect it. You should want it. You should want to know more about you. Then that lets them know that you know a lot of different things, right? Use it as a way to kind of give them a free example if you want or something, right? Or tell them about, oh yeah, it was hard to get used to. It's old. It's an old system. We're about to change it. I after I wrote up a paper about how bad it was, or there's I did my own research on alternatives, et cetera. Like try to always try to like upsell, right? Um, give yourself a little more easy points. Yeah. So with the follow-up questions though, no, there wasn't really anything else I guess you can say about that. Let's see. Pardon me, it's late, although this is when I normally will be doing these. I think that might be just about it for that part. I mean, I'm really trying to rack my brain. If I'm doing an interview, follow let's see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's about it. All right. So I guess in general, even if you're not interview trained or they're not, right? Um, hopefully they just pick good people for the interview, right? That's like the idea, right? Don't that they're not gonna pick POSs to do the interview, and you could just get unlucky that way. You have no control over this stuff. So like, I know people get a lot of pressure. So let's, I mean, we talk about the interview, interviewer, right? But maybe I'll close this stream and take a break and come back. But yeah, this was basically, I know we talked about these guys, the interview trained. It's target selection interview that actually takes, you know, time. 1.5 days or so. It might have been 2.5 days. I just remember it being like, I thought it would just be like a virtual session or whatever, but it was pretty hardcore. When they get to the end of their packets, I mean, we talked about the packet itself, so they don't have to come up with these questions. They're given to them. Okay. And I've seen it where an interview goes really long with a really good candidate and you only get through like 5 questions and then, or something happens and you only get through 5 questions. And then I've seen but then with the other candidates, you'll get through all 10 or whatever. It's like, well, how is that fair, right? Um, and it's not. Is it not? Is it? But it shouldn't be. That's where the scoring part and the philosophy part. They really got to just think about what's best for the company, right? Like if they talk to you, if they spoke with you and like they were just like loving the dialogue with you and like having the conversations and you were just open and honest and they were like, yes, this is the guy we want. He gets our jokes. We've been kind of cracking jokes. Um we've been sharing information, etc. It's like, yeah, we want this guy. Right. So yeah, so that's amazing if they get you with that. Um they see also saying, oh, okay, and then I forgot to mention um round robin is how it goes, right? So how do you pick a question. Um, so again, I did the one B thing over here, right? So they're gonna pick the question out. It's gonna be the same question for every person, but also, um, not only is it the same question for every person, uh, it's round robin though. So it's like she'll ask um 1B, he'll ask the 2C, and he'll ask the 3A. Um, and it's supposed to go kind of like around in that loop for the interview, right? So each one's going to have one, and really what that ends up looking like is that they kind of step through the different, like I said, there were sections, right? So they're going to step through the sections where it might be like 3 questions in a section and just 2 questions in a section, and then so it just goes that way um, through the whole thing, and it goes pretty fast. I've seen interview packets that are like shorter these days. One of the interviews packets that I was going against because I saw the lady pull her packet out, like she lifted it up, and I could see it was the talent management system like documentation that I was trained on, and she only had like three. There was 5 questions, I think, um, and or was it 5 category? Either way, but you can be as short as you want. Sometimes, sorry about that. Sometimes when you're doing an internal uh, meeting, you you have more leeway with it if it's all internal candidates, and you can kind of ask like then it becomes like a free for all. So all these rules I just mentioned are mainly for hiring someone outside. So when you're hiring someone inside that's already in your company and they're already within your like organization, I think you're allowed to ask more pointed questions, and then you're also allowed to just kind of like do like oh we're just gonna only ask these 3 this time, right? So they'll literally go through the whole book of 12 questions. Instead of asking the 12 questions, they're just gonna they chop it up and say we're just gonna ask these 2 or 3 to each candidate. So the interviews go very fast, and then at the end, they're allowed to ask like any question they want, but they have to document it, right? So like you have to. So if you get through all the questions, get to the very end, they can do more questions. So it's like a sorry about that. It's like a check understanding kind of thing. So they're just gonna keep reaching for more information from people. Um, so anyway, yeah, I'm yawning. I'm getting kind of carried away here, but it's not really. I mean, that's why like I hopefully get some interaction here. I get some people asking questions or something about this eventually, right? That's why I started the my channels back up and stuff. Is um, it'd be really great to help people with this and actually answer like say somebody has like a detailed question or an interview went a certain way and they're like, hey man, did I get screwed out of this? Because sometimes you just want to know. You just want that extra like thought from someone else, like, yeah, you did. Because if you go tell your friends, like, man, that interview sucked and they had it out for me and I got my ass kicked, they really just didn't like me, and you say stuff like, well, it's because I'm old or I'm black or I'm young and I'm stupid, and you get all down on yourself, and your friends and family will like agree with you. But I will tell you the truth. We can talk it through and say, what answer did you get for this or that? Because man, I know people that have like gotten themselves not gotten a like immediately um on like okay, let's say they took themselves out of the running extremely fast, right at the interview or at the very end of the interview. It was like a definite no go. Where he's like okay, have a good day, and they turn around, it's like dropping it, like flicking you off as they walk out the door or whatever. Um, and you're like, we can't hire that. Like, there's no way. Um, and again, you got to take care of the company in the end. That's what they're looking for. Um, of course, people do hire their friends, and no matter how good your interview possibly is, there's always that chance that they hire their buddy from high school or whatever, and you didn't know that it was their buddy because you don't see them go in, right? You go in blind. That's why I say you just act like you go to these things, you act like you don't need it because you're just going to be exactly where you're at before. And part of that is the grind though, where like don't like go apply for like 20 jobs. There's nothing stopping you right now from going to LinkedIn. Well, I wouldn't apply at LinkedIn. I don't know. Sometimes those are real hit or miss these days. Like 8,000 people apply for the same job. And I have my own conspiracy theories on it about how it's working out. But like your local ones, like just type in like think about the businesses around your house you drive by every day, whatever, right? Like just think about it. Like what's that big building over there? Google Map it. Oh, that's PPPI Industries. You're like, I don't know what the hell that stands for. And then go look it up. You'll find their website. You'll find careers that aren't posted anywhere or scraped by any other system on the internet. And you'll be like, oh my gosh. And you have a higher chance of getting those jobs, don't you? Because nobody else is starting to see those because they're not knowing how to look for jobs. So anyway, stuff like that. We'll talk through, and I could do it live, look for jobs, but I gotta have like that motivation. I need somebody to like ask me, right? I mean, I looked at jobs today on my phone. And usually what I do is I'll look them up on my phone, and then I'll take like a screenshot of like the site I was, just so I can see like the site I was on, the job title. Sometimes there's like an ID number, and the location will all be like kind of in that first view. So I'll click and take a screenshot, and then that way I'll go back, right? Um, and you make sure you go back within like 3 days or so. Most jobs are only open for about 3 to 5 days. If it's like a big company, it's pretty serious about hiring somebody. It's pretty quick because they get about 90. I think the last time we clocked it, this was pre-COVID and all that jazz. Um, but there's like 90 people per management position that apply, and that's a lot. I mean, I know the world's big, but that's a lot of people applying for something at the same time, and then they have to take 90 and milk that, squeeze it down to like the best you should do is three candidates, okay, and then somebody says 3 to 5. And I've seen people do like, I'm interviewing 7 people for this. One time there's a supervisor job open, and they told me they're going to interview 9 people for it, and I was like, why would you do that to yourself? And not only that, but it also kind of it's laziness really in the end, because you might be like, hey, I want to give this guy a shot, and it all sounds good, but if you don't really have a shot at it, I don't think you got it. Now there's times where some people want to move up, and they've made it clear they want experience interviewing. So we'll tell them, hey, we're doing interviews this week. So we're gonna pull you in, but you're like, it's kind of like you're like, is it a charity interview? You're like, yeah, it kind of is, but the difference is we have the packets that are gonna ask you the exact questions of this job that you actually want. Okay, so we'll bring you in. We're gonna ask you these questions. And then, but sometimes you get blown away by their answers, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't know that about this." You're like, "Oh shit!" that was him that did that project. Oh man, wow. And then you actually end up kind of considering it. But anyway, you don't want to pull a nine. That sounds just ridiculous. So even if you're like, let's do three serious ones, and then you're like, and then let's do a oddball, like the guy from administration that, he wants to move up so bad or something, and you say, yeah, get that guy in here. And then you interview him, right? Then you check it out and take it. You can take it real or serious, whatever you want. I'm just saying, just nine's insanity, insanity. But I do know some jobs get like, actually the lower the job is, like the lower like lower pay, I guess I would say. There's like a threshold. I don't know. I saw some studies and stuff, and then like actually saw as people were doing interviews, where like if a job is like, um, let's say like $80,000, there might be like 50 people that put in for it. If it's like 60, there's like 90 to 100 and something, and then it's like lower than that, there's a lot. Like I mean, pre-COVID McDonald's or something, right? When people were like, when jobs weren't just everywhere for everybody, there'd be hundreds of people that apply for these jobs sometimes, and it's just like, oh, how do you even like narrow that down? It's like a crapshoot. So you have these people walking around thinking they're not good enough to get jobs. Like, no, you just don't give up. Just keep applying at places and just don't give up. Um, then you've got I know like even you do this yourself. Just go on LinkedIn right now. Before I do it real quick. Well, no, because my account's gonna be a little different. But if you go to LinkedIn and type in just wide open search for jobs, right? Just go to job search. Just hit the search button. You might have to start by typing like worldwide for the area, but don't put a title. But just search jobs, okay? And then you're gonna see these trends right in your face because LinkedIn tells you how many people apply for each job, like actively, right? And I don't know if those numbers are 100% correct, but they got to be close. You think, yeah. But you can see how long the job has been up as well, which is why you might see where I'm getting with my like conspiracy theory of LinkedIn and scamming and stuff. Um, but you'll see a job that's like um, $100,000. It's like 17 people applied for this, right? Because the difficulties within the job tasks, it's like, whoa, it's crazy. It's like medical stuff. You'll see a lot of that too. The higher the pay, the more qualifications, the lesser amount of people put in, and that makes sense. But when it's like manager of some place, 100, $102,000 or something, it's like 20 people put in. That's it. Oh, well, hey, that's good odds for those guys, isn't it? But then you look at like jobs that are like, when it's like 200,000 or more, there's like 900 people pushing. Because I think at that point, people are like, you know what? Apply anyway. What are my chances? One in a million. I pop that baby in there. Um, yeah, yeah, even though they know they're not going to get it, but it's one of those things where like I've done it, and I've gotten to like I put in for stuff that I know is way too high, and I've gotten through the first, gate of HR or whatever, the first check or the two checks in where it's like about to get to the interview. Oh yeah, it's good point though. Some companies these days piss me off because of how many interviews they do. So, and rounds of interviews, right? So it's like I like the panel here. Like we've got three or more. I don't care how many are in the room. I'd just rather have a panel than to do an hour meeting with all three separately. 3 hours of my time. And the problem with that is that they don't even, what if they don't even hire you? Like there's a chance they don't. And then if that's round one, sometimes is all three of them 1 hour apiece. Then a week later they tell you they want another round. And then you want it again, and now they're like, meet the team now instead, and I understand the thought process because I'm a process guy. I get what they're going for. They want the consensus of the team. They want to make sure they hire the absolute perfect person, but you know what the problem is that like they often don't, and so the results don't equal the effort, is what I'm saying. And they don't hire and maybe they don't even pay that much. That's what gets me. One of the jobs I was in, I got a story. I'll save it for like a video on YouTube or something. But by the way, okay, so I'll end it there. It's getting kind of late, and I'm not just sure how good this went. I'm not sure the settings are right. In my OBS, I think I actually marked reruns, so that sucks if people thought this was a an old video or something. But anyway, I'm still learning this like a couple days in here, whatever. Just thought I need to help some people, maybe learn some things. But please like and follow or whatever. Um, and then if you want to find me on YouTube. I got the same name, Job Grunting, and that's a hidden meaning thing there from Beowulf. But um, yeah, follow me there, and I think I'll probably start putting something on TikTok if this stuff goes okay. But otherwise, yeah, we'll just stick to YouTube and Twitch here. Okay, so. So that is my stream tonight. Thank you very much, and I'll try to do again tomorrow, and also throughout the week. So probably every other night, because during the day I work quite a bit. So again, because that's what I'm here for. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good day.